So welcome to the 2021 VBS and Summer Possibilities. I'm glad to have everyone here. We're going to go ahead and open with a word of prayer. Let's pray. Gracious God, we give you thanks for this time that we can come and learn about summer and VBS and how do we do this well and what does that look like in all kinds of different creative possibilities and opportunities. I pray that you would be with us, help us as we share, help us to have grace with one another as we may be in different places as far as precautions and opening and locations. And thank you that your grace is sustaining and that you are with us always. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay. There we go. All right. Whenever I'm talking about anything, if you've been with me at all, you know that I start with the why. And I encourage you as you are getting started to think about your why. And your why for any kind of summer programming, whether it be a VBS or something, a camp, ongoing summers, whatever it is, knowing what your why is very important. And it could even be that you ask questions like, maybe this is a year that you get to be imaginative a little bit and you say, what have we done in the past we want to keep? What have we done since the pandemic that has worked, and what do we want to let go of? And this can be true of a vacation Bible school or a summer program, just as much as anything else that we're doing in our churches. So setting your why, and this is also important as we consider that in the past, Vacation Bible School may have been used as a low cost or free way for parents to have childcare during the summer. I mean, we all know that there's families that do VBS hopping, right? And so that's something to consider. If our past has been to offer childcare at a reasonable cost to help families in the community, whatever that looks like, and you can't do that safely this year, then either it might be a year to skip VBS or determine a different why so that what you're doing makes sense for this summer. So I will leave that there. If you have more questions, we can, of course, come back to that. And then once you've identified your why, you can use that to shape what you're going to do this summer. Use the things you have noticed or information you've gathered to inform your decisions. And from there, there's endless possibilities. I've had conversations with a few of you and it's all different and it's all really exciting. So a couple of ideas: parking lot or park or green space gatherings. All the information that we're getting around COVID is that outside is safer. That's the safest place that we can gather. So anytime you're able to meet outside is going to be safer. Digital playlists or playlists that you can send home. Those are curated resources with a story or with activities and prayers and questions that families can do. Adopt a road or a park that could be ongoing or just one time. Help older members with yard work, etc. Youth, older adult driveway visits. This is a great idea. Family activities, and then maybe this is a summer where we give families space to breathe, rest, process, etc. And there's all kinds of things. I will share this PowerPoint on the website when we're done. So you don't have to feel like you need to take copious notes if that's not helpful. So there's a few ideas. I know there's tons more. Those are a few things to get us started. And other ideas may include a vacation Bible school or vacation Bible camp or whatever terminology you have. The Summer of Playful Kindness is a resource that myself and Christy White from Michigan, Melissa Gapford from Great Plains Conference, and Tanya Campen from the Rio, Texas Conference have put together. It's done today. So I will share that link with you all today, but I know it's 6 weeks of playlists that you can share with families. So it's the PDF is done, the digital content is almost done. So that's an option. A summer of rest. family events, more. I think as always, but maybe even continuing this year, is to keep it simple. Some families are ready to open up and do more. Others are still hesitant. So keeping it simple, I think, is good for everyone. Okay. If you're planning or thinking about a VBS, the when and the how and the what are important. Also, I think a lot of us are stumbling with plan A, B, C, D, E, F, right? We can go all the way through the alphabet. So the when is the date and the time, the how, and this has expanded. It used to be that it was really like in person or out of the box. And now it's like all out of the box. It's really quite exciting and a little overwhelming. So in-person, virtual, hybrid, family model, drop-off model. We can do rotations. We can have tents outside. We could do inside. There's all kinds of things. I'm going to go through some of those ideas in a few minutes. And then what are we going to do? There's kits, materials, or curriculum that you can use that you can pay for. There's some out there that are free, and I will show you where you can find some of those. And then having a few plans, backup plans, which may or may not be as overwhelming once you start thinking it through. I hope. I feel a little bit less overwhelmed after talking to some people. And I'm not even running a VBS. All right, getting started. We leaders, I'll get more into that. The how, the where, the how much, and the partnerships. Who can you partner with for resources, support, and prayer? And there's pros and cons and ups and downs to all of those things. So the format. The last time I did a VBS thing, I think that I had one column of here's ideas, and now we've got a full 2 columns. Super exciting. So we have morning or evening, 3, 4, 5 days. Could do a weekend of 2 days. We could do a 1 day. It could be 1 time a week for 5+ weeks. Rotation, where kids rotate to different areas. It could be everyone's in one classroom. Rotating leaders, so all the kids are in one place and the leaders rotate. Combination, intergenerational. Now we're hearing more about family unit VBSs, which was always a thing, but it's just become more of a thing where families stay together. Virtual, where it's all either online or combination of online and family at home. Hybrid, so maybe we kick it off in person and then the rest of the time it's virtual. And then the indoor-outdoor, where most of the time, many VBSs were most of the time indoors and a little bit outdoors. Now it's either flipped or it's all outdoor. A lot of churches are looking at it that way. So there's some things to think about, some possibilities. All right, COVID precautions. So I think I'm guessing that this is a big thing for a lot of churches, is how do we manage any kind of summer programming with COVID? I am not a COVID-19 expert. I'm using the information that I have found to the best of my knowledge. So I would always recommend going back to your local congregation, your state, your community, whatever guidelines you have, as well as the CDC. And there have been some updates in the last week from the CDC about different things. And I think that will continue to over the next few weeks or months. So what we say now may look very different than what's being shared in a month or two. So the first thing is volunteers. Some folks have been fully vaccinated, feel very comfortable coming out and doing vacation Bible school or summer programming. That, you know, whether they've been vaccinated or not, you still need to have the same mitigation policies across the board. My understanding is that it's okay to choose volunteers specifically if they've been vaccinated. No matter what program you're talking about, it's always okay to ask certain people to volunteer. So if you ask certain people to volunteer and you happen to know that they're vaccinated and you feel more comfortable, or your policy says that that's what you need to do, you need to work that out with your church, with your insurance company. But that's the word that I'm hearing at this point. Knowing that that can change, and always talk to your church insurance company. Their word is over mine. So finding volunteers. There are ways to structure your VBS so that you might need fewer volunteers. If you're doing a family model, then the parents or the guardians are going to act as the leaders, if you will, over their family. And then maybe you have station leaders, or you have people who are showing the families what to do, depending on how you have it set up. If you have kids that are being dropped off and you're doing it a sort of traditional way, you may, and you're outside, you may need to have extra volunteers to make sure that you have smaller group sizes and that you have property line patrol, especially if you have busy roads or water around your property. So those are a couple of things to think about. With children, the latest recommendations in Michigan are that anyone over the age of 2 needs to have a mask. Indoor, outdoor, it doesn't matter. And part of United Methodist rules are, for living, are do no harm. So part of that do no harm is making sure that we're following those regulations and guidelines. But those may change, so keep an eye out. And the way that social distancing is working has changed somewhat also. The latest is that kids that are in the same cohort can be 3 feet apart with masks on, 6 feet if they're outside their cohort and around other kids or adults. So that is, I'll share all of the links at the end that's the latest. And there's recommendations from the CDC from the last week for summer camps that just came out too, that are helpful for Vacation Bible School or summer programming. Mitigation policies, masks, hand sanitizer, hand washing stations, all of those places that you can make sure. Signs are important, helping people to remember to do all those important things. Washing hands should have always been an important part of what we do, and it continues to be an important part of what we do. Music is sticky. Different churches have different feelings about music. How do we do music? So if your church is not singing on a Sunday morning, you may want to consider not doing music in the same way during Vacation Bible School. Some churches are they're teaching the sign language or the motions with the videos and focusing not on the singing part, but the speaking the words and learning the movements and learning the meaning of the song, not necessarily just the words. So they're also not doing that formal performance at the end, but they'll be sharing more with music as the center. They'll be sharing more what the kids have done and learned, or having a dance party instead of having the traditional music. So that's one thing. Communication, you can't over communicate. So communicating all the time is really important. And there's probably other things. If you have other things, you can jot it down in the chat box. And COVID is always, precautions and things are always changing. So kind of keeping up to it, or finding out if there's things that are coming out from your conference or state is helpful. All right, I heard from a few churches that are planning for outdoor VBS. And both of them are going to be having it in their parking lot or green space, but a local park would also work. And considerations around heat and rain or weather are two of the things. Michigan, weather is hit or miss in the summer. We could have a week where it's 70s and perfect, or we can have a week where it's 100 and horrible. So weather is hit or miss. The churches that I talked with are doing pop-up tents and either using sandbags or getting stakes into the ground. One of the suggestions was if you're using pop-up tents and you have the they're staked down, that you put pool noodles around the ropes so that they are visible to kids who might be running around. Pest control was another thing. So, like watching for, are there bee hives around? Are there other things that we need to be aware of around the property? Safety concerns, making sure that if there's roads or water features or safety things around drop off, pickup, those kinds of things, that they're cared for. Some churches are using family groups, so they're staying together either at a pop-up tent and then themselves, or blankets on the green space. There's a few ways to do that. One of the considerations is audio video. So how are we going to do audio video with sunshine or with all the noise? It's hard to do like the story video if you're doing a story video all at different times. So there's just some considerations. And then set up with tables. One of the churches didn't want to bring all of the chairs out, or didn't have enough chairs. So they're getting those big 5-gallon buckets from hardware stores, and they're making the top a cushion. And then each child will have one, and they can put all of their supplies into this 5-gallon bucket, carry it around if they need to, and then they get to put all their stuff in it at the end of the day and take it home with them at the end of the week. So I thought that was brilliant. Everything's there, self-contained. Kids have it. They can stick their water bottle in it, whatever. It's all right there. So if you're doing it outside and that's a concern, that might be an option. And then timing and drop-off pickup are all other considerations to think about depending on how your church is set up. Hydration and cooling stations was another thing to be considering. Encouraging kids and leaders or families to bring their own water bottle, and having refill stations. So not drinking fountains, but refill stations for kids to fill up their water bottle, and having a place that if there's kids that are having heat exhaustion or too much heat, that there's a safe place that they can go to cool off. All right. Hybrid. We've learned from last year, or from the last year, not necessarily from last summer, but from the last year, that hybrid can work. I've heard successfully churches that do an opening or a kickoff in person and then send home boxes or kits that families can use at home and utilize Zoom or other online options. So it might be a private Facebook group that people upload their pictures of the craft that they did or the story they told, or however that might work, or using Zoom. I know that there are families who have been online with their kids all school year and are like, once we get to summer, we're done with Zoom. And that's okay. That is a completely cool family option. There's others who we can be clear in our advertising and in our communication that this isn't an educational Zoom where we're sitting and getting information. This is, but if you did it in the summer, that it's more interactive and less I'm getting information. So it's not the same kind of Zoom, which some may be open to and others are not. But there's lots of hybrid options that can go in with that, picking up boxes, or it may even be that your church thinks it wants to have an in-person outside, but your backup plan is if we know it's going to be too hot or if it's going to be thunderstorms, that we can switch to hybrid. We will give everybody their packet the night before, the day before, and we'll just plan to be on Zoom the next day. It may not be ideal, but we're learning and experimenting and figuring out not only what can work for this year, but what might work into the future also. And will that work for families for whom a parent works and they can't come in person, but if you offer an online option, they can still participate. And then similar with online or Zoom, you might send home a box of for families to use at home, utilize Zoom or another platform. And then there's a lot of resources from publishers and blogs and others who are doing online VBS that you can access. I like the idea, Megan, of having a VBS water bottle as the day one gift. that's a great idea. That way they don't have to remember or bring one. Other creative ideas are church in the park. I totally stole that from somebody in Michigan. Every Sunday afternoon at a different park in your community. It could include some kind of VBS activity or faith formation activity. Another suggestion that I've heard is postponing summer VBS and doing something in the fall or the winter. So those are a couple of things. All right, I have slides about choosing curriculum, but I'm going to skip over that for now. Leaders. Something else about leaders are asking who's been effective leaders in the past, who might be willing to lead this year. Are there any leaders who we have to have difficult conversations with? And how are we setting up our leaders for success? So training this year is going to be, I don't want to say more important than ever before, but more important because the rules have changed in some cases. And so we have to be really clear with the leaders what the expectations are. Some people haven't maybe been kept up to date with their protection policy or safe gatherings or safe sanctuaries policies. And so that's going to be really important to make sure you give yourself enough time to make sure that the leaders are all compliant with whatever the safety policies and procedures are in your church for background checks and all of those pieces. And also when you are looking for volunteers, to ask them. I mean, it's great to put it in the bulletin and send an email, but there's nothing like a personal ask. Even if you're newer to a church and you don't know everybody, you're learning who people are and what gifts they bring and how they can help either in with the VBS or in the behind the scenes kinds of things. And then there's all kinds of things about decorating. Be creative if you're outside. It doesn't have to be the same kind of over the top if it's as it might be inside. Use what you have. The kids are going to have fun. And I don't really remember the decorations from VBSs growing up. But I remember the games and I remember the music and I remember the people and having fun. So that's just something to think about. All right, communication, advertising, marketing. Who are you inviting? That's a really important question this year. Often in the past, we're inviting the community. We want everyone to come. If you're limiting registration, which a lot of churches are, simply because they can't, they have to be more intentional about how many kids so that they can be prepared. Then know that if you only have room for 40 kids in your VBS and you have 75 kids in your church, it may just be a church community VBS. So be aware of that. Know who you are going to invite, and if you're going to have a registration limit, what that will look like so that you can plan accordingly. And then communicate before, during, after, especially with COVID procedures and policies, making sure that people know what to expect. And management, again, having clear expectations, a clear plan for behavior concerns, what will, running through different scenarios, what will this look like? If we have somebody who gets sick, where are they going to go? If we have somebody who gets hurt, what is that going to look like? All those places that we need to have, regardless whether we're inside, outside, but just have those kinds of things in place, and especially around COVID protocols. And it's always important to appreciate. So appreciate parents, guardians, caregivers, leaders, those people behind the scenes in the congregation. A picture, a slideshow, thank you notes from the kids, something that helps those folks to know that they are appreciated. All right, that is the end of my information. If you need more, please feel free to contact me and I will be glad to help.